Greetings, everyone. Good morning here on the East Coast of the U.S. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I am so grateful that you are here. Welcome to the Starseed Ministry. It is March 27th, 2023, and as I anticipated, March flew by. April's going to do the same thing. Okay, guys, so that's important to consider. So I hope everyone is doing well, taking very good care of themselves. I hope you had a good weekend, if in fact you had a weekend, and the trust that bears fruit. You know, trust is an interesting concept, faith and trust. And in astrological terms, trust and faith belong in the 8th house of Scorpio. And I like to call the 8th house the house of death, sex, and taxes because it is a power that is produced not just from within the individual, but in communion, in relationship, and power that is produced in communion, cooperation, and relationship generates faith and trust. But that doesn't always mean that things come along exactly when we want them to. And in fact, it's in the 8th house in Scorpio where the seed for the next cycle is deeply embedded, goes into hibernation, goes into the underworld. So we have so much to talk about, and I'm not going to lie, definitely a little rough around the edges. We're going to talk a little bit about the space weather. I did do a video already. Many of you, I'm sure, have watched it. The solar storm that we had on Thursday into Friday. I talked about it because it was as Pluto was coming into Aquarius. So now we have Pluto in the sign of Aquarius. We have Mars now in the sign of Cancer as of Saturday. And the moon right now is in Gemini, and we're going to have some more high-ticket transits this week. Mercury and Jupiter will be in conjunction, which I am looking forward to. There is going to be a trine with Mars and Saturn. Again, another really high-ticket but very favorable, strengthening type of transit with Mars and Saturn coming into a trine, right? That 120-degree angle. On the same day, Venus is going to be conjunct with Uranus. So we're going to want to have that Mars trine Saturn on a day where there's going to be some really strong upsets, I would say, shocking changes in the actual physical material landscape. And Venus is at home in Taurus. She is in her territory, but in a conjunction with Uranus. You can better believe that there will be shifts in the landscape that have an impact on our comfortability, have an impact on our feelings of security and balance, but at the same time, it is going to provide one of those moments where we can either choose to sit under the Bodhi tree and be present in the moment as the battle rages on around and within us, or we may find ourselves being very easily disturbed by the disturbance of Uranus, as is usually the case, especially in the sign of Taurus. So I hope everyone's doing well. Welcome here. Welcome if you're new to the channel. Please take the time, if you find value in this content, to hit the like button, to subscribe to the channel. The more direct and transparent I am becoming with certain things, the more it is drawing in attention, sometimes good, sometimes bad, and the more that you as an actual free-range human are interacting with the content authentically, then you are impacting the algorithm, and it does find other actual people so that this message can get out there, that the community can continue to grow, because we really do need each other right now. So a couple of things before we launch in today's Starseed Ministry, just to give you an idea of what's going on in Catalyst Energy's world. The vernal equinox forecast is still open at the sale sale rate, or a 60, 90-minute reading, your choice, for $66 or $99, and that's in USD currency right now. You can book right from the website. Everything's in the description box. You guys know the drill. But for anybody who's new and considering this, you can find everything you need in the description box, the links you need, the email, how to tap into membership content and information about that. But this vernal equinox, right? We had our equinox on the 20th, and we're going to have the seasonal forecast. This is available based on your individual chart up to the solstice. And what I am feeling, what I am reading, and what I suspect based on the data points of certain things, not the least of which is the astrology, but also the current sunspot cycle, is starting to calm down. It certainly doesn't seem that way because of the incredible solar storm that we just had on Thursday into Friday, which I will go into a little bit more detail about on this broadcast. But there will be a bit of a respite coming over the next couple of months, and it is anticipated to amp back up in severity come July or even into August. So right now, during this season, leading up to the solstice, right, which is in June, and then we move into July, which is Leo season as well, into the Lion's Gate in early August, things are going to start ramping up again in terms of the geomagnetic unrest and the solar weather and the way that it impacts us. So this moment right now, these next couple of months, surely there will be all kinds of destabilization that's going to be happening in many sectors as it is continuing to do so. But it does feel that this reprieve just for this moment over the next couple of months is coming in order for us to kind of pull ourselves together and be prepared for the next wave. And so if the last couple of weeks have been any indication of what to expect during that time, it's going to be that much more inflamed, that much more intense. And yes, the thing is around that time, Pluto will be in its retrograde and it will move back into Capricorn. So we are not finished with this controlled demolition of all of the institutions that have given us a sense of provision and security at the societal level, which is what Capricorn represents. We are not finished with that. So we're just kind of dipping the toe right now into this Pluto and Aquarius realm. And I talked about this on another video that is on this channel about the historical context of the last time Pluto came into Aquarius. So you can check that out if you haven't already and just get an idea of what we are up against. So the vernal equinox forecast gives you a sense of what to expect in relation to your own soul architecture and blueprint moving forward. So you can, if you're interested in that, I'm going to keep that up for a little while longer, probably up to the full moon, which will be April 6th. By the way, the full moon will be in Libra. So if you're interested in something that is much more concentrated to this lunar cycle and you are an Aries Libra person, this lunar transit forecast is available to you at the sale rate, also at my website. If you are part of the monthly membership, any of the tiers, this is available to you no matter what your sign is. So that's something to consider. And if you are interested in any of that membership content, right, our bi-weekly Zoom, you get the weekly astrology report, which I go into much more detail on a weekly basis of the transits and my read on them. And then the Catalyst Classroom, we're doing Defense Against the Dark Arts. So we just did biochemistry and the importance of that in terms of protection energetically. And now we're going to talk about sound and cymatics, and I'll go into more about electromagnetism as well, going into more detail about telluric energy, going into more detail about how sound and cymatics and vibration how it actually works. What are the mechanics? Because you have to understand that so you understand how sound and cymatics can actually benefit you and how it can be used against you. So again, if you're interested in this and all of the other content that I've already posted for the Catalyst Classroom, you can find that information linked below and how to sign sign up, and there's no obligation. You sign up for a month, you sign up for 3 months, whatever it is, and then you can get all the content that was already there. So I just wanted to let you know what that all is about before we launch in today's transmission. Okay, so I'm gonna bring up a couple windows here. So I hope everyone is doing well. It has been quite the weekend, and we kind of anticipated that, of course, with Pluto coming into Aquarius for the first time since 1777. We had Mars come into Cancer, which is, I anticipated was going to be one of those moments where it was like, okay, it's time to make some decisions now. And the moon crossed over the Pleiades and came into Gemini, and that's where it is today. We also had Mercury and Chiron come into a conjunction yesterday as well, and I'm going to point out in today's reading where I feel like that energy really presented itself, and the idea that when Mercury and Chiron come together, you get full conceptual cognitive awareness of our old and very tender, raw, early childhood wounds, maybe past life wounds, whatever those wounds are that we kind of keep perpetuating because we feel like that we don't know who we are without them, and that keeping the wounds open is the only way that we can assist and be of service to others, right? So there's Chiron, the wounded healer. But remember, Chiron is a hybrid. Even his hybridization didn't save him, and he had to surrender it in order to truly release himself from his own suffering. And so this Mercury Chiron conjunction in Aries, I think, really brought to our awareness exactly what is going on in that realm. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into the reading and the astrology. But Mercury and Jupiter coming together, this is a really awesome transit. I talked about this in a number of different forecasts that I put out, that this is one of those moments where the planetary ruler of the mind and Hermetics, and Jupiter of the higher mind and understanding and purpose and meaning, when they come together, especially in Aries, which is the seed point of our creative potential, there is a lot of the ideas are going to be flowing, right? The inspiration is going to be there. The meaning is going to be very accessible to our mind. The patterns are going to be easily recognizable. But there's one catch here, and it's all written in today's astrologies, especially, that I feel like is going to translate to how we are really going to get the most out of these transits, which is we have to find a way in our own experience to be here and present, but also be able to transcend and find a means of being unattached to what is happening, right? How do we exist in two places at once when we are firmly here, firmly planted, very present in the moment? And how do we actually find a way to transcend that in terms of the way that we feel any kind of strife, we feel any kind of stress, we feel anxiety, we have physical pain, whatever it is. Not to say we're bypassing, that's not what this is. It's not a bypass. It is, how do we take ourselves above this so that we can see the bigger picture and actually plan for that. That is important. It's very difficult to do that when you are fully engaged in a cycle of pain, or in a cycle of mental health or emotional health, as you swirling around and kind of caught in a feedback loop. We have to figure out how to use that energy in order to kind of pop us out of it and above it, in order to get that larger, broader perspective. And I would say even beyond that, to be able to block whatever signal comes in and kind of loops through us like we are some sort of routing system for some other signal, right? That's really important. But this Mercury-Jupiter conjunction, which is tomorrow, is one of those moments where the communication is going to be really strong. The ideas are going to be flowing. You're going to want to be writing things down, planning for the future, getting idea of where you're going going, how you're going to get there, and know that things that are initiated during this time about your own creative potential, your own impulse to be, right? These Aries types of themes are likely to be very successful with the right intention behind it. So you also want to be very aware of what's going on right now. If you're not aware of what's going on, then you can't really plan you can't plan very well if you aren't grounded into what's happening and seeing the bigger picture. So again, we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into the astrology itself. And of course, Starseed Fellowship people, you're going to be getting your astrology for the week here and going much deeper into that. So we also have a first quarter moon, right? Tomorrow in Cancer. Talked about that quite a bit last week. So, and also in the weekly astrology report for the membership, we have this first quarter moon, right? This is always an actional crisis. Crisis in what am I going to do, right? Because we have the sun in Aries, which is, it's bright, it's dynamic, it has this impulse and spark, right? But we also have to emotionally contend with the fact that we can't necessarily physically grasp what it is that we may conceptualize, which we may have this intuitive sense, right? We look into the crystal ball, so to speak, right? This is not about telling the future so much as we see the full picture, we're identified with it, we're expressing ourselves through it. But when it comes to grasping it, it is elusive. And that can be really frustrating. That can really feel disempowering. And what are we going to do about that? That's the thing about these first quarter moons. We start to realize where are the barriers that are going to need to be overcome in order to capitalize completely on the full moon, which will be in Libra. Okay? And there are so many things right now that are leading to our disturbance in our mind. Again, that feedback loop that is it a transpersonal piece? Are we finding an oscillation here that allows us to tap into the rhythm of life in itself? Or are we just are we just like spinning around and around and around because there is something else routing through us as a signal that is running the show for us? And this full moon is going to give us illumination about, do we have a calm mind and a calm presence within ourselves, or are we being influenced to try to grasp something that is absolutely elusive and being mentally and emotionally and even spiritually impacted, right? Feeling unsafe, feeling out of control, feeling like we don't belong where we are because of this. So this has a lot to do with this first quarter moon. That's tomorrow, the moon in Cancer, right? And now this is where Mars is. So Mars is really digging down deeply, maybe has to dig that well a little deeper. Maybe the root system needs to start really going deeper, almost aggressively, certainly assertively, to get deeper, to stabilize. Maybe we have to start taking very seriously this need to protect that which is valuable to us, our home, our family, our own personal power, right? Because the other aspect of Mars in Cancer is the intrusion or the penetration through those walls, through your own skin, right? Through the shell of the crab, so to speak. So it goes both ways, and we have to be aware of that. And I think the moon in Cancer, too, is going to be a big part of that as well, right? Bringing that awareness to us about what are we going to do. Because it's not enough just to be the seed and identify as the seed. It has to go through its entire life cycle. And the trust that bears fruit is not for the faint at heart. And when we see today's reading, you're going to see that the harvest is well upon us in many ways, especially in the southern hemisphere, right? They just came into autumn. Okay, so, and if you notice, there is a lot of seismic activity south of the equator, of certainly in other parts of the globe as well. So, but a lot down below the equator. So, I'm going to check in with the stream here real quick and make sure. How's everyone doing? I'm just going to check in with some of the chats. People in Mama Wolf Memories, doing my best to stay in my center. Yes, definitely. Do your best. I think that's really important. Oh boy. Sorry, guys. I really apologize, but I just have absolutely no fucking patience anymore for the tones. Megan says, finally, you're live until I board my flight. Oh, safe travels, my friend. Been working on that duality. Virgo Ascendant helps, and I'm certainly working on it. Yes, all we can do is our best and stay committed, stay vigilant, and you're so right. That Virgo energy is really important, and we're going to see it in today's reading right now. And then Mama Wolf Memories. I just wanted everyone to know how much your weekly reading was spot on for what I'm going through. High five. I've listened to it 3 times so far to help me. Well, thank you for sharing that so that other people recognize the value of those weekly readings, because I go into way more detail and it's very much focused on the astrology and me reading the astrology. You also get a good idea of how I would read your chart when you have access to that astrology read. So I apologize for the loudness. But like I said, I have no patience at this point for the tones, right? They can just move on. So, and I'm not surprised by that either. I am not surprised at all. Boy, it's gotten really personal for me in the last couple days. So what I'd like to share with you first, before we get into the card reading, is we're going to look here at some... It's important that we look at this all the time, the space weather, the Schumann resonance. Now, things have calmed down. We had that solar storm on Thursday into Friday. The strongest in years, apparently. And I went into my tirade about it on the Puzzle Time, Solar Storm Puzzle Time. So you can check that out so you can get the details about that. So what I want to share with you now is, first we're looking at the Schumann. So this is the quality, and the way that I've explained it as a non-professional geophysicist in just what I've learned about it and my experience as a professional energy worker and body worker and energetic catalyst, basically, is that the quality represents the quality of the tone, right? I mean, we're going to start talking about sound and cymatics in our next session here. So the quality of the tone. You can see here that last night into this morning, now this is Russia time, so this is actually yesterday afternoon into, I'd say roughly, 10 a.m. to noon Eastern Standard Time. You see that the quality of the Schumann resonance really went up. Something happened where the quality changed pretty drastically, and then it came back down, and then it spiked up again, and then it came back down pretty drastically, and then about 2 a.m. it spiked up, the quality. So it is variable. It is moving around. It is not consistent right now, okay? Even though what is consistent is the geomagnetic conditions, and I'm going to show you the way that you can tell. Now, this is the actual pitch itself, right? The frequency, the pitch. Now, the Schumann resonance, 7.83. So this is the baseline all along here. And so, yeah, of course, it's variable. It's a dynamic thing here. So, but you can see right around the time that the quality shifted, the pitch started to drop, okay? And then it shot back up all the way to above 8, right? When the baseline is 7.83, it shoots up, so the pitch is higher. So the Schumann resonance, the pitch is higher, okay? And then all of a sudden, at 2 a.m., when that quality spike came, the pitch dropped drastically, and then it went right back up. So, in movies, right? This is the comparison I'm making. In like those action and all kinds of action movies or the Marvel movies. It doesn't have to be Marvel, but these modern action movies where you get this moment where they play a tone that starts to drop in pitch, and that what's about to happen when it reaches, when the bass drops essentially, and then there's a a huge explosion. That's what's, I think, really happening when we see these things in the Schumann. And this is, I don't think, personally, my opinion, I'm not a geophysicist, my opinion is that when this thing happens, something is encouraging this to happen. There is something outside of the heartbeat of the planet herself that is making these types of impacts. So you can see that there was an impact to the Schumann and those pretty drastic 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, okay? Now, here's a coronal hole, right, that's coming into view. So in the next couple days, we're going to get another stream of solar wind. Wasn't anything like we just got last week, where that hole was like 3 times bigger than our entire planet. This is a little bit smaller. So it's likely we're not going to get the intensity of that solar wind, but we're going to get a little bit more. But the sunspot action is really, really calm right now. Things are not flaring. Now, what I'd like to show you here, this is the measure of the pressure of the magnetosphere. And when it is red, there's more pressure. And when we have more pressure, there are more parts per volume, which means there are more particles, bouncing around the magnetosphere. You can see there ain't much going on right now. This is current to right now, okay, leading up to this point. Even if you look at the density of the magnetosphere, the bluer it is, the more dense, again, density is parts per volume. And then volume is, and then pressure is the same thing. So you can see it's not very dense at all. There is a calmness that is happening. But so why is the Schumann quality changing when there is this stabilization and the density of particles in the atmosphere, in the ionosphere, and the magnetosphere is very minimal right now. So there's not much going on here. But again, the quality and the pitch of the Schumann is changing, even though things are, again, if you have more information about this and you understand this because you're a professional, please feel free to comment and let us know if there is something that we're missing here, right? Because I'm just looking at it as an observer, and with my own directed education, my very minimal but still background in astrophysics, I do understand these baseline data points. So I think it's interesting. Okay, so I just wanted to share that with you. Now, the other thing we're going to just take a little bit of a gander at this map here. So there was a couple interesting things that happened right in my backyard over the weekend, okay? Starting to get a little personal here. I'd say more than a little personal, but that's not, I'm going to use this as a way to teach something. So, some of you may be aware of this, some of you may not be aware of this. So what I'm going to share with you is that, so on Friday, Thursday into Friday, Thursday into Friday, there was another chemical spill into the Delaware River. So I'm going to show you. Now, it took 2 days before a water advisory was actually issued for this area. So here is Philadelphia. This is the Delaware River, okay? Now, it happened right in Bristol Township, as you can see here. Levittown, Croydon, Bristol Township. I am very familiar with this area. My family currently lives and is from this area for hundreds of years, okay? My mom's family, my maternal side, was settled in this area in the 17th century, so before the 1700s, 1600s, right? The original colonists coming over from England settled in Bristol, okay? Now, this is exactly where this spill happened. And I don't know all the details quite yet. I'm still getting that information. But my understanding so far is that it spilled chemicals right in the Delaware River that is very similar to what happened in East Palestine, the same constituent baseline chemicals. And for those of you who took the biochemistry or listened to the biochemistry Defense Against the Dark Arts class, and I actually went into it in the last Starseed ministry about vinyl chloride and the chemical constituents and what happens with solar forcing with chlorine chemistry in the atmosphere and in the water, right? What happens? So this happens on Friday, Thursday into Friday, or Friday into Saturday. Now I can't remember exactly, but it was over the weekend, right? So Bristol Township, right into the Delaware River. Now, the other thing I want to share with you on this handy dandy map here, let me move back out a little bit, is now on Friday as well. Now I want you to look here, make sure you can kind of see it, and you can't really see it, but maybe if I can do this. Yes, there we go. What you're going to see here is the Bristol Township. Now up here is a town called Reading, Pennsylvania. And in the same time period, sometime Friday, there was a large explosion in West Reading. It was in a chocolate factory, strangely enough. It was a huge explosion, right? It looked like a bomb went off, okay? Huge explosion in Reading, okay? And so then you have, at the same time, basically, you have this chemical spill into the Delaware River from Bristol Township down into the Delaware River, which, if you follow the Delaware River, it empties into the Delaware Bay and then out into the ocean. Okay, Reading. Here is Reading. So there's this huge explosion in Reading. And then on Saturday, there was an event in this place in, let me bring this back up again. I want you to really pay attention to this. Pottstown, if you can see it here. Pottstown. So here's Reading up here. You travel down 422 to Pottstown, and there is a park in this area called Ringing Rocks. And it's a field of rocks and boulders that have a really powerful resonant quality. And there was an event going on there that was scheduled for Saturday, to make the rocks sing, right? They were doing a cymatic experiment. So they were going to gather people there. They were going to play a certain type of music, and they were going to see if there can be a relationship, right? They called it a cymatic experiment. So right around the time that was supposed to happen, there is this huge explosion in Reading where a number of people died. And on the other side of that, down in Bristol Township, there is a chemical spill, very similar in terms of what happened in East Palestine, right? Remember the chemistry I talked about, dumps it into the Delaware River, which is the waterways. So what does this have to do with anything? Well, I was kind of just thinking, when we're going to talk about cymatics and sound and the idea of telluric energy, and if you don't know what that is, Telluric, telluric energy, ley lines. I don't know if I wanted to control the telluric energy and the ley lines on the planet. I don't know. I feel like that I would cover them in concrete, and so nobody could have access to them, and maybe continually charge them for my own benefit with huge amounts of traffic. Oh, that sounds like an interstate. So I want to show you, that's just if I wanted to do that. If I wanted to control the telluric energy in an area, if I wanted to have complete control over it and also keep people from actually being able to access it naturally, I think I would want to do that by covering it with a lot of concrete and asphalt, and maybe perhaps, I don't know, charging it artificially with lots and lots and lots of traffic. I don't know. It's just an idea, right? So I want you, now I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and I want you to look at some things here about what's going on in Pennsylvania. So here is a major interstate, right? So here's Reading right here. Here's a major interstate. Here's I-76, which is the Pennsylvania Turnpike, which takes you all the way out to Pittsburgh, which, the Ohio River. is out there. Actually, 3 rivers converge in Pittsburgh, if you didn't know. The Ohio River, the Monongahela River, and the Allegheny River. Actually, the Monongahela and the Allegheny flow into the Ohio River in Pittsburgh. So the Pennsylvania Turnpike takes you all the way out there. 78 turns into 81 and converges in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Let's see if we can move it over there, just to give you an idea, into 81. And reaches the Susquehanna River. So if, waterways are really important when it comes to telluric energy. So, and the Susquehanna River flows all the way down into Baltimore as well. And probably, if you just keep following it down, see where it goes. But you have these 2 interstates that are on either side of where Reading is, right? Going down into Pottsville. Here's Reading, goes down to Pottstown. And then you go down to Philadelphia. And then what is following the Delaware River? Well, look at this. This is I-95. And if you go all the way out, I-95, and many of you know this, I-95 goes all the way down to Florida. It spans almost the entire eastern seaboard. Okay, so very interesting that all of these things happen in a very short succession in my neck of the woods over the weekend. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. Now, I would love to say more, and I am going to say more to those who are part of my membership. And it's not because I promise you, it is not because I am trying to keep things behind a paywall for my own benefit. That's not what it's about. But I am really trying to save this channel for the limited time that it's probably going to be up here, to bring people into the awareness of these things and bring them into smaller communities that can actually interface with this information a lot more authentically. So I'm going to save the direct conversation for those. So that's another reason, if you are at all interested in any of the things in terms of the astrology readings, the Catalyst Classroom, right? And the things we're going to be going over in terms of sound, cymatics, biochemistry. We're going to go into crystals again and minerals and how that's part of defending yourself, and certain types of bodywork modalities and how the body fits into all of this. You may want to consider it, right? And like I said, everything you need is in the description box below. You can always email me if you're curious or you have more questions or you need some more clarification on things. You can do that as well. But, these are, if I was interested in controlling the ley lines across a body, I think that I would probably want to cover them in something that would not allow people direct access to them. I don't know. It's just an idea. So I'm going to bring up the reading right now, and we're going to start looking at the transmission that I was gifted, as I always am, that comes through that I get to share with you guys. So let's look at last week's reading just real quick, just to kind of give ourselves a reminder here about this hanged man that really wasn't quite there, right? We're not quite surrendered, but we not quite not surrendered, but there's definitely some resistance to the idea of surrendering to the divine will, divine plan, to really trust so much that we're willing to surrender the head to the heart and really turn things over and trust, right? So the trust that bears fruit. So that was last week. And I feel like now where we're at, well, let's just show you. I think this will make more sense when we look at the imagery. Okay. Here's today's reading. So, we keep getting this card, this 8 of Discs, prudence, right? The sun in Virgo, the time where the plant is actually growing and bearing the fruit. So this continues to come up in our awareness. Now, it has now it's in the past or the causal position where it has consistently gone from the the future or the impact into the present. Now it is our causal factor. It is something that we've already been experiencing. The patience, the prudence, the ability to wait for the right time to act. And I would say, and the skill development, that is a big part of this card, is that in the 6th house in Virgo, this is where you're really honing your skill. You are practicing it. You are committing to it. You are putting into practice the everyday activities and putting things where they belong in order to be ready to not only bear the fruit, but offer the fruit into relationship. And that is a harvest of sorts, right? So there's wisdom here, there's development, there's care during this time with the 8 of discs, okay? Now, to have the Hermit as our central theme, especially in terms of its reversal, this is also a Hermit card. And, you know, asteroid Ceres is retrograde and has gone, and dwarf planet really, has gone back into Virgo, which is a sign that she would much rather be in than she wants to be in Libra, because in Libra means harvesting, right? And so she's back. And so this retrograde or reversed Hermit says to me, at least right now, there's something about Ceres coming back into Virgo, which is that we're still kind of in our Virgoan isolation, inner work type of energy, and maybe it's more of coming back into it. Now, there's a couple ways we can read this that I'll go into, but you can see this is truly what is coming. This is the Death card. So, for better or for worse, there is a transformation that is in a line of sight here, right? In quote unquote the future. And this is kind of one of the most feared cards because it is the human condition that, because we don't know or understand, and I think we do understand, but transformation is difficult. Change is difficult for us because we want to know what to expect. And death is everything about this card is the Scorpio card. It's the 8th house, and it is about transformation. So if we just look at this horizontal axis as it is, right? I mean, we know we have been patient. We have been honing our skills. Hopefully, we have been mastering our own self, and perhaps there is going to be some extra isolation, right? Putting your head back in the sand type of thing. I'm not ready to come out. But the other read on this, as I'll get into, is that we maybe are not taking enough time in this area. And this is what I say here, that there does appear, at least in the way that I am reading things and experiencing them, that the next couple of months are going to be a bit of a respite. And like I said, there will be certain sectors that will continue to deteriorate, that they will continue to go, to the landscape will continue to shift. And I think Venus and Uranus this week is going to be a big tell in terms of what that is going to feel like in terms of resources, in terms of what is physically valuable to us, in terms of what is relationally valuable to us, what matters, what has meaning to us. And Uranus is always shifting things around. There is an awakened consciousness available with Uranus, but that means that it usually comes at the expense of our comfortability, right? When that third eye opens, right, you see things that you cannot unsee, or you become connected to something more than just yourself. And I think when Venus and Uranus come together, this is something that is very destabilizing in terms of what is valuable, what has meaning to us, our comfortability, our safety and security, our resources. Venus in Taurus, I mean, she is magnetic. That's the other thing too. There is such a strong possibility of an infusion into the magnetic balance here from Uranus, which again is that really quick bolt of lightning that just shifts everything around. So again, it is repolarizing our values, but we we are being asked again, are we going to get pulled into the pitchforks and torches reality, or are we going to be like the Buddha under the Bodhi tree that is like, this whole thing is about mastering ourselves in the midst of this, right? And so we have been patient and we've been honing our skills, but we're not quite there yet because there is massive transformation coming in a way that is pretty cut and dry here, right? The death card, it's not a lot of, considering that it's like the 8th house in Scorpio, there's not a lot of mystery to what it represents. The mystery has to do with what to expect as a result of this transformation, because that's not up to us. That is up to our relationship with life, our relationship to our Creator. The trust and the faith is what is generated in this process. Okay, so we've seen this card many times, so I don't feel the need to necessarily go over it too much, right? The Sun in Virgo, the 8 of Discs, right? Everything is at full maturity here. Skill development, waiting for the right moment. The harvest is at the right moment, not or too early. If you wait too long, then everything starts to over-ripen. It's about waiting for the right moment, and you can't be ready for the right moment if you haven't practiced over and over and over and over, right? And the other thing about that is really important is that when the time comes, if you're not practiced enough for things to instinctually kick in, that moment's going to pass you and you're not going to be able to capitalize on it or even respond to it. Okay, so just because nothing seems to be happening necessarily does not mean that you are not doing what you need to do to prepare for the harvest at the right moment, okay? So, and being so tuned into your environment and to everything that gives you the signal, it's time to harvest, right? And that's why wisdom, consideration, prudence, patience, knowing when the right time is. Now, the Hermit in its reversal, there are a couple ways to read this. Number 9 is the Hermit card, and so we get some sequential energy here of the 8 into the 9, and on top is 18, which breaks down to 9, or in two different ways. 8 plus 1 is 9, 18 divided by 2 is 9, and we'll get to that up in the air. Right, we'll get to that. But this Hermit card, here's our cosmic egg, right? Here is Cerberus, the 3-headed dog that guards the underworld. Here is the Hermit surrounded by all of the stalks of wheat ready for the harvest, has the light that guides all of us because the Hermit goes into their own underworld. Just like in Virgo season, the roots are doing all of the work to draw the minerals into the plant. The hormonal structure of the plant changes because it's no longer about flowering. It is about fruiting and it's gestation, right? And so it doesn't seem like things are happening, but they are because they're happening under the surface. And the Hermit we cannot tap into our inner voice while we are still engaged out there. Now, when the Hermit's reversed, there's a couple ways to read this. We're not taking enough time for this inner wisdom and personal reflection, okay? And I would say that with this respite that's coming, yes, the banking system is falling apart. And I would suspect here, especially because Pluto's going to retrograde back into Capricorn, back into the degree of the U.S. Pluto return, and I was wrong about that. It actually does go back to that degree, 27 to 28 degrees, which I talked about in the video about Pluto, the history of Pluto in Aquarius, that it's just dipping the toe in, okay? It's not done yet. And so what I suspect is there will be these seeming band-aids across things that are going to give people a sense of, oh no, it's going to be fine. It's going to get taken care of. And people are going to have this sense of letting their guard down, not taking enough time for this personal reflection and inner wisdom because they thought, oh, we've waited long enough, right? We've been patient and prudent. We've been mastering ourselves. And oh, look, everything is going to now this is coming out in two ways that I've seen personally in just my scanning of the content out there. One is all of the Christian channels are constantly they're all talking about the rapture. They're all talking about U.S. as Babylon being judged and destroyed. Like they're just beating everybody over the head with the Bible about Revelation. Okay, so that's one side of it. The other side of what I'm seeing is the New Age channels about, oh, we're ascending into the fifth dimension right now. Either way you look at it, I do get the sense that the respite that we're going to have soon is going to provide a false sense of security, and people are going to either stop with this, or and they're not going to create the space to continue to cultivate their inner light. They're not going to be dwelling at the center of themselves, right, in order to cultivate their relationship with their creator continually, or looking outside of us for the answers, okay? This is a number of different ways that this reversal, and like I said, Ceres has come back into Virgo, the goddess of agriculture. So the harvest isn't quite here, and I feel like that this is a gift if we see it that way. The other side of a hermit being reversed is that our isolation is a bypass. We're running away from something. We are not addressing what is actually going on. We are just putting our heads back into the sand or continuing to do so without actually doing the work. So there's a couple ways to read this. Now, the Five of Roses, or the garden, it is in our root system. It is in these lower chakras. It's in our ability to tap into the heart of the earth herself, right? We have to tap into that telluric energy. We have to tap into those natural tributaries and ley lines in order to tap into this sense of real protection. Look at these children. They're safe. They're playful. They're discovering. They are exploring. They're being a little, I don't know, perhaps being a little mischievous, right? The little boy's got his slingshot. The little girl has got the magnifying glass and looking at the butterfly. They're able to tap into those qualities of authenticity, of play, of joy, of optimism, because they are walled off in this beautiful garden, right? There is a wrought iron fence surrounding them, and then all of this foliage, right? This is what I think needs to be cultivated within these lower chakras and our connection to the planet, so that we can maintain this sense of discovery, exploration, curiosity, joy, optimism, and creativity, expression, right? It's not about being naive. It's about these Cancerian themes, right? And part of this, I feel still, is that the best case scenario with Mars in Cancer is to take that initiatory dynamic energy and go deeper, right? To put that warrior energy into tunneling down deeper into what stabilizes you. Where do you feel your connection to life itself? Where do you feel this sense of dynamism and initiatory action? It's like it's like the seed needs to go into the ground and then the roots have to grow down. And this, I feel like, is going to be really essential when we get to the solstice in June, because once we get there, that's where the root system is established. So right now with Mars here, it's going down. It's tunneling down. 1 second. Okay. So the Five of Roses is about where this energy is really going and why, and what we want to feel at the center of ourselves here is this sense of protection, so that we can be authentic and really explore and feel playful in a lot of ways, okay? Which seems really counterintuitive to everything that is going on around us. Now, up in the air, number 18, right? I just talked about that. That either adds up to 9, or you have that and it turns into 9. This is also the moon card in the traditional tarot, number 18, right? And the moon is related to the high priestess, number 2. And the hermit card is related to that high priestess energy, because you can't tap into that inner wisdom without getting quiet and going within. So you remember the isolation chamber from last week, okay? So when up in the air is reversed, it is usually indicating that a situation is coming back down to earth. Now, considering the fact that it's up in these upper chakras of our throat, of our third eye, the crown, I would say at this point that we are starting to come to conscious awareness and see things more clearly now, okay? It's coming back down to earth. We can enter the picture and bring more influence to bear in some way. You can participate in a higher capacity. And this is where the phrase, the trust, when it's up in the air, the trust has borne fruit, okay? You can understand the situation more fully and act on it more purposefully, okay? And I think that this, for some people, it's going to be a little bit more difficult than others. And just because you become aware of things doesn't mean it's not going to instill some sense of, oh, I kind of want to run away from this. I kind of want to go back into my cocoon here and not interface with anything that's happening. And it's a fine line, right? It's how do you continue to cultivate that inner light? So this is about existing in two places at once here. How do you cultivate that inner light, that inner voice? How do you continue in this process while starting to come to a really conscious awareness of what is actually happening, okay? And being aware of the situation coming down to earth and being very present in front of all of our faces, okay? And seeing things more clearly. Because what to expect here is the harvest. Absolutely. I mean, the death card, and it's not so much the harvest, it's the harvest and then the darkness, right? The transformation process. Now, it's about letting go of outworn patterns and attachments, right? Purging and cutting out the baggage. You can't actually focus where you need to focus when you are still caught up in outworn patterns, outworn relationships, outworn attachments. It's time to purge and cut out the baggage, whatever that is for you, right? That could be so many things. And I feel like with Venus and Uranus in that conjunction this week is going to make that, it's going to put it right on your doorstep. It's going to put it right in your body. Right? It's going to be right in your face about relationships. It's going to be in your field. You're going to feel it in your senses about, either getting caught up in the polarization of the pitchforks and the torches, right? Or you're going to be like the Buddha under the Bodhi tree, right? And you have to cut away all of this stuff in order to successfully cross the threshold of this battle, this inner battle. This is an ending that promises a beginning, right? Because in Scorpio in the 8th house, the trust and faith is built on the consistency of the relationship with your community, with your partner, with your creator, right? With life in general. But that doesn't mean that you don't have the experience of death, okay? And I suspect that this is down the line. This is coming into July, August, and September when we start really seeing this, okay? The actual fruits of this. So another aspect of this is getting rid of old loads, liberation from old temptations, right? If you don't know what those are, maybe you do need to spend more time listening to your inner voice, cultivating that mastery within your own field. And there's this old Sufi saying that says, die before you die. So if we can't let go of the fear of death, we can't live fully. And this 5 of Roses is really suggesting to me that at the root of things is this, almost this innocence. And the first quarter moon is this purity and understanding. And these 2 children have this purity and understanding because they have a protective mechanism around them that is this huge, beautiful garden. It's nature herself that allows them to be able to reach out and almost naively attempt to grab what is really elusive. And then this first quarter moon is going to be some sort of actional crisis that is going to bring that awareness to us about what we're going to do. How are we going to cultivate this for ourselves? Because where it's going, does suggest that we are going to, the harvest is happening regardless, right? And so the culling is been here, but this, in terms of the way that we can have a relationship with this consciously and with full awareness, suggests here that we can let go of the old patterns. We can cut away the attachments. We can liberate ourselves from these old temptations so we can actually transform. Okay? Now, we may need to do some practices here that bring our bodies back into balance. So the Kiwi is talking about doing a walking meditation. But look, this is a bird that is on the ground, right? And so what does walking also do? It balances the body. It balances your proprioception. It brings the two sides of your body into balance. And so this is about being grounded. This is about safety. This is about survival. This is about detection, right? These are all key words going along with this card. And that suggests to me that we want to feel this Five of Roses. We want to be able to have this purity and understanding. So we're going to have to do the practices, right? Going back to that Hermit energy and that Virgo energy, we have to actually do the practices that are going to allow this for us. And that means being consistent, whatever it is. If you haven't instituted a practice that no matter what the hell's going on in your life, you are sitting down and doing it every day, then this is a great time to start, right? Because it's really important that we are doing something. The Smoking Titan. We've seen this one a couple times recently, about planning and contemplating. Now, sitting back is not so much being apathetic or complacent. It is more about receiving. And it seems to me also it's more about being able to listen, right? And to, when it says planning and contemplation, I feel like that Mercury-Jupiter conjunction is a big part of that tomorrow, with this ability to really plan ahead and to make plans and to let the flow of ideas, that contemplation, really come through. But you can't do that again when you are so engaged with the rigmarole, or you are caught literally in a feedback loop because you're routing something that's not you and that is not natural. It's really difficult to get out of that and know what to do with yourself when you're caught in that feedback loop. So this isn't about complacency or apathy or indolence. This is about receptivity. This is about listening. This is about that walking meditation, gives you space to contemplate, right? And when you have trust in your connection to your creator, in connection to life, right? When you know where you're rooted and you trust that you are connected to that no matter what, then this, I feel like, gives you the ability to kind of be safe enough, feel safe enough to not only experience this joy and this optimism and this innocence of this Five of Roses, just like these children in this garden, but it also gives you time to really consider things, okay? And to listen. Now, this is a new one. When the Devil Spoke. Wow. And when we're talking about up in the air here, I would say that the thing that is coming into our awareness, that is coming back down to earth, is exactly this, right? What have the lies been? How have we been captivated? What sort of illusions have we been sold, right? This is starting to come into awareness, okay? I would say for the most part. And every day there are more things that come across our path that actually give us the opportunity to be like, whoa. So I was listening to something last night, and it was somebody who was an exorcist and talking about how even in those types of extreme cases of possession, right? And I'm not here to argue or debate about what that is or isn't. it's more about how the person who was talking about it as an exorcist had talked about how even in those situations of extreme possession, that type of experience, this is coming from, exorcists are for the most part Catholic priests, and I'm not saying that is definitively always the case. I don't actually believe that, but in terms of their sector of reality and their belief system, that this person was talking about how even in those extreme cases, God allows these situations, the demons, to come in and enter your life, because it is an opportunity to actually be able to strengthen your resolve, to actually battle your own demons, to face your temptations. And there's all kinds of ways this happens. So we're starting to become aware of these things, the lies we have been sold, the illusions we have been sold, how we have been captivated by things through our own temptation or our own guilt, right? Or feeling ashamed of things. And that brings us back to kind of feeding the lie, right? Or allowing the words of the devil, so to speak, to come in and influence us. And I do feel like that is what's coming into our awareness, that and also this trust in some ways to not buy into it as well. And it will continue to come in. Like, there's no ending of this. This wheel continues to turn. And it's our responsibility in every moment to be aware of what this is, because it never stops. It's not like it's going to stop. That is the nature of spiritual warfare in a nutshell, basically, is that this never ends in terms of the human experience currently, right? And I can't say what's going to happen. What I can say here is that we're in a moment here where we get to really see and become aware of, and this reality is coming in to settle down into earth. And so you have the goose here, which is, I thought, was really interesting in terms of taking the time to rest and recuperate. And it seems counterintuitive considering the fact that we have this coming down to reality that was up in the air. We have when the devil spoke. But I would say here that, again, we are in a position where we need to mobilize our inner resources, right? If we continue to give our power away, if we continue to route signals that are not coming from within ourselves, but being basically a walking antenna, if we do not allow periods of respite for recovery and to recover from stress, it will be a lot harder for us to cut ourselves off from this temptation when it comes in, because it will come in when people are at seemingly their weakest, and they are pushed down to their knees in one way, shape, or form. And that's when the whispering in the ear and accepting anything that'll make it stop. But if we take the time while we have it to recover from damage, to have a period of respite, and to mobilize our inner resources by resting, then we have so much more to basically block these signals, block the lies that are coming in, to resist the temptation. Seems like a really big theme, because when this death card comes, right, this transformation, and you don't have full trust and faith in the relationship to your creator, this will take people over in their fear. And this is exactly where evil comes in and penetrates, the chinks in your armor, and is like, here's what I will offer this to you in order to give you what you want. And in some cases, it's going to be making the pain stop, right? So there is this respite coming, but we can't, I would say my guidance and my suggestion here is that we don't that we take full advantage of it as a time to mobilize our inner resources, to continue learning, keep practicing, finding the places where there are holes in our spiritual armor, so to speak, and bolster them, do what we need to do. And part of that is connecting into the places where we are bolstered by life, the womb, so to speak, of the garden, the natural energies that are part of this creation that will really protect us, and that is that armor, right? When you talk about Ephesians 6, right, put on the full armor of God, it is quite literal in terms of our biofield. And this is suggesting to me, this 5 of Roses, that it starts in the heart, right, in that heart fire. And with this first quarter moon tomorrow, it really feels like we're going to be kind of put to the, that actional crisis. Okay, what am I going to do? Am I going to keep reacting, or am I going to actually get out ahead of it now and reinforce this wall around me, not to cut people off, but to continue to do that work, to cultivate my own intuition, that inner voice, and my relationship to source, because either way, where the harvest is coming. So if you're going to bear fruit intentionally through your service, you're going to want to know where it's going, right? Because there's no way to not harvest, right? I mean, the plant goes through its cycle. I think while Ceres is in its retrograde, this seems really strong to me that we have this period here to take advantage of while we can, okay? So I want to bring up the astrology chart and just kind of, wrap up today's transmission with looking at the astrology for the week. I pretty much talked about all of it at this point, but, just to give people a visual sense here, if that's, especially for people who, because I want to cover all kinds of different, like I said, different sectors here. So people who are more interested in the astrology get something, people who are interested in more the intuitive reading part as well. And then certainly the more data oriented stuff, so that we can pay attention to what's actually happening out there. So today is the 27th. We still have this stack up in Aries. You can see that Mercury and Chiron were already conjunct. Mercury and Jupiter conjunct tomorrow. Venus is in Taurus. She's going to be conjunct with Uranus. And Mars is now in Cancer, and it will be in a trine to Saturn. So it's really very concentrated in these two areas right now, which is the seed and the soil. And those two things are where it all starts. And if the soil is corrupted, if things shift really rapidly, it's going to impact the way that seed point actually is able to germinate. So, and it's almost like Mars is tunneling down in order to give the root system an opportunity to easily penetrate deeper and stabilize us. So this trine to Saturn that happens this week is going to be so stabilizing. It's going to give that warrior energy of Mars, it's going to stabilize it into something very real, something very secure, something that you're not getting around either. That's the other thing. It's like a piece of rebar in the ground. It's not going anywhere. And in Pisces, I mean, you're talking about something that's seemingly, non-solid, has no differentiation. It is the collective unconscious, but even in those places, there are still remnants of what has come before. It's still there. It's like petrified wood, right? It's not the actual substance, and it's not in its full configuration, but there are fragments left here. And I think those fragments that are left, that Saturn is going to be representing, are exactly the type of thing that we can anchor to in terms of testing of our will, right? Because that's where Mars and Saturn are going to be in that trine. And usually trines make people kind of lazy because they don't have to do anything. They're not being challenged. But this is one of those transits where emotionally it's going to be like an anchor. And it's going to be a stabilizing force emotionally when we probably really need it, especially because Venus and Uranus will be conjunct the very same day. So as we go through the week, the moon's going to come into Cancer. It's going to meet Mars as well. And you're going to see that there's going to start being this grand water trine with Mars, with Saturn, and the South Node in Scorpio, right? The sign of the 8th house and the death card, and where we've been at a soul level, where we're coming from at a soul level, which is the inertia of institutionalized procedures, right? How strong communities can be, but also how limiting it can be if you were trying to grow into something new. And the seed wants to grow into something new. And I think that's something that is worth considering with this water trine, that it will come back around to this point, but you also don't want to be so inert that you can't change. And that's what the death card will do. It doesn't matter what you want, you're going to change in some way, shape, or form. And the harvest is going to definitely be here. So this water trine seems really strong, and it'll start with the moon, and then Mars will follow up later in the week. So, and here's and this is Wednesday the 29th, and the moon will move through, be ready, the moon's going to move through Cancer, and it's going to be real sensitive. Very, very sensitive and intuitive. And then we get to Thursday, the 30th, and this is where Venus and Uranus come into that conjunction. And also, too, this is the trine, right? This is the exact trine with Mars and Saturn coming into the weekend, really, and coming into the beginning of April. And let's just kind of look through the weekend here. So you can see that this is where Mars is coming into this water trine with Saturn and the South Node. The moon will be in Leo over the weekend, and will come into opposition in Virgo with Saturn by Sunday. Okay, and this is this is a lot of this is a lot of bitterness. This is a lot of resistance emotionally. This can be very difficult emotionally when the moon and Saturn are in opposition. But you see where it is. It's going to be in Virgo. So it may still be difficult, but this is where the rubber meets the road here emotionally in terms of things. So this is an opportunity to be ready for this and kind of practice it. And this is something we'll talk way more about on the weekly report. So coming into Monday the 3rd, again, these are all seemingly, and then Mercury is going to square Pluto at 0 degree, a fixed square, 0 degrees of Aquarius and Taurus. And, Mercury is not exactly, Mercury in Taurus isn't exactly the best placement. It's not the worst either. It's not like it's in detriment or in its fall position. It's just in a place where the mind wants to move, right? And be mutable. And in a fixed earth sign, it's going to be very much the only movement you're going to get here is if your mind is and your cognitive abilities are tapped into the fixed nature of resources and materiality. So, and the square to Pluto, right, it's going to be difficult because we're going to feel the tension around what we know or what we think we know, and this incredible, powerful, deeply buried type of transformative energy of the social collective. And so this is going to be quite the challenge coming to next week. And I feel like, too, that this is where, and the moon will be in Virgo. Right? So I do feel like that this is where you're really going to start feeling that reversed hermit, right? Because Mercury also does rule Virgo. And I get the sense here by next week, this is where there is going to be a lot of resistance, but the waxing gibbous phase is where we actually start coming out ahead of the obstacles and how we are going to break them down before they become problematic. And this is part of what the first quarter moon, is going to really present for us as we move into the full moon, which will actually be on the 6th of April, which is Thursday. Let's see here. Which is, Mercury is going to meet the North Node leading up to this point, and then, the moon opposite the sun for the full moon. And 16 to 17 degrees Libra is truly, a calm mind. Are we going to be able to emotionally have a calmness to us in this moment? I think that we're going to understand this pretty clearly when it all goes down, right, on the 6th. And this is Thursday. And Sunday, right? Sunday's Easter. So we have Thursday, we have Friday, which is Good Friday, and then Sunday is Easter. So it's going to be a very, very active weekend from the full moon into Easter, I would say, especially with Mercury and the North Node in conjunction. Venus crossing the Pleiades at that point as well. So I'm going to talk way more about that, I would say, for the weekly astrology report. But unless you guys have any questions, I think that's going to be it for now. Mama Wolf Memory says, again, loving this guidance. This is strong stuff. I had a couple geese hanging around my neighbor's pond and doing my inner work diligently. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, I think that's really where we need to be here, is doing the inner work diligently and being fully aware of what the spiritual warfare actually is, like the actual mechanisms of those things. And they're not just ideas, they are actual. And I'm going to be posting some more links on social media and maybe in the comments section of just other content that really shows, exactly what the warfare really, really, truly is, and how we need to be diligent about our process so that we are prepared to we're prepared with the full armor. So, but that's something that I'm reserving for the membership right now, because it's a safer space, and I want to keep these channels up for the time that they're going to be up. I can't imagine it's going to be much longer, right, in terms of my ID and how that'll be necessary in order to continue using your internet. So I know where my choice will be on that issue. So that's everybody's choice they're going to have to make in terms of their own self-sovereignty. So, my friends, thank you for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you very much. If you are interested in anything that Catalyst Energies has to offer, you can follow any of the links in the description box below. You can email me directly if you have questions, you have concerns, you need clarification. And I will see you next week on the Starseed Ministry for the first one for April. So you guys, please take care of yourselves. Take care of each other the best you can. May your Creator bless you and keep you. And I will see you guys later. Bye.